Hello. I think you might be on mute there, it looks like.
I am on mute. No longer.
Ah. How are you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Good. I apologize. I was a couple minutes late there. I was just finishing
Dude,
up another call, so yeah.
you're good, man. How are you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. I'm just turning my phone off here so it doesn't go crazy. How was everything back home? I don't think you've been traveling too much, have you? You're back home?
I'm in Phoenix. We went to Southern California for a few days over over Christmas to see my in-laws. It's what I fondly refer to as Groundhog Day Christmas number 19. Uh, and we're back in action, just cranking away. All good.
Nice.
What about you? You been traveling? You been kiteboarding?
No, not too much. Like we got back from South Padre. We left South Padre November
Yeah.
30th, and then we kind of went and visited people. So we didn't get back till the 12th. And then we've been home since then. We'll be home January. I'm doing a ski trip with my sister to Banff, Canada, the end of
Oh, dude.
January through February, which will be super
Nice.
fun.
Is there snow? Is there good snow? I know it's been kind of unseasonably warm.
I haven't checked yet at all. I've been so busy I haven't looked. So I'm like, well, even if there's like one patch of snow, we're going through a ski club, so we're already going anyway.
Okay, cool. That'll be great. Yeah, of course.
um, but it should be fun. Might be kind of cold, and then we'll be doing 2 weeks kiteboarding in El Cuyo, Mexico, in the middle of February, visiting some friends down
Fantastic.
there, and yeah, we had the Real Coaches Summit in Vegas, and then
I'll see you there.
oh yeah, you'll be there. That's
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna pop in. We're gonna be in San Diego for the kids' spring break.
Oh, nice.
So I'm gonna bail for a day and a half and come over and hang out, say what's up, and it seems like just a great event, too hard to pass up. So I'll be there.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Are you
And
speaking?
then no, I was speaking last year,
Okay,
and then they just did all new speakers this year, which,
cool.
whatever, that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that should be fun. And then might go, one of the documentary film I helped with, I was just one of the people interviewed, is premiering at South by Southwest in Austin. So we
Which one
might
is
try
this?
to, it's Dark Night of the Soul. It's
Okay.
a documentary about post-traumatic growth.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we've spoken about that. You've been working on this
Yeah.
for a while.
Oh yeah, they've been working on it for quite a while.
Cool.
And so I think they're getting close to being done. Like I think the filming portion finished a year and a half ago, somewhere around there. Yeah, so I haven't heard the updates of what it is. They're just trying to finalize scheduling and stuff like that. So if we can make it down there for that, we're gonna try to do that.
Cool. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Any particular topics you're super into you wanted to chat about today? I'm pretty open.
I mean, not really, man. I'm good to kind of rap about whatever you want, whatever you think will be valuable for your listeners. I'm happy to entertain. You tell me, dude. I'm easy. We can just, keep it organic and see where it goes.
Yeah, I was thinking of something like how do you, as a trainer, like where do you get information from and how do you
Mm,
sort of validate it? And then the flip side is how do you balance that with coaching clients? Because, I know you go to conferences, you're always looking for, better information. But at the same
yeah,
time, you work with a lot of clients who don't really give a shit that this
totally.
has 2.5 grams of leucine in it.
Yes.
But yet, there may be a time and a place where that might be useful information if they're looking at vegan diets or plant-based diets or, other things like that. I'm always curious because I kind of live in that same area. It's like, where do people get info? Like, who do they trust? Like, do they just read PubMed or do they take other things from other coaches? Do they test it on themselves then? Or do they have like a group of, lab rats they tested on first? Or I don't know. My thought was just something around
I
that
love
kind of
it.
process.
Yeah, I love it. That sounds great. Yeah,
Perfect. All right. We'll just
sounds
do a
great.
short pause and I'll record a little intro beforehand, so don't have to worry anything about that. So,
Easy, man.
Cool. And welcome back to the Flex Diet Podcast. How are you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. It was great to see you at the Silverback Summit again in Austin, which was awesome. Shout out to
Mhm.
Allie Gilbert. She's been on the podcast here before, a good friend. She did a great job, and that was a super fun conference.
It was great. It's always fun to hang out at conferences. It's something that really lights me up that I've really thrived from over my career, and always looked forward to. And that was certainly a special one. So again, I'll reiterate, shout out to Allie. And man, what a good opportunity just to connect with some like-minded individuals like you and all the other experts in the field. It's interesting because I feel like a lot of times as coaches, um, as individuals who are so firmly rooted in this identity of health and fitness, oftentimes we feel like we're kind of living on a deserted island here because, frankly, the vast majority of people that surround us in our communities aren't on the same wavelength. And so when you do get in those social environments, it's just you automatically feel comfortable, you feel supported, you feel understood and heard. And man, what a great opportunity is to just connect and talk shop and know that guys like you are genuinely interested. They understand where you're coming from, and it's just a great opportunity to learn um, what you know what's going well for individuals in their life and their business. So it's such a great learning opportunity above and beyond just what these speakers are presenting.
Yeah, and I mean, we're both old enough in a good way to remember what it was like to get information in person. I mean, for quite a while, that was kind of the only way. You had some magazines, you had maybe some courses. But I was just talking to Dan John the other day, and the fact that new people could email or send a DM to an author of a book or a training program. Again, not they may or may not reply, which is a whole different topic, but
Right.
I can't imagine doing that like on some of the mail order courses I did back in the day. Like
Yeah.
you could send a self-addressed stamped envelope and pay $5 or whatever, and maybe you get a
Right.
response. But now, like there's so much access that I think people miss out on what it's like to go to a live event because yes, you're going to get great info. Yes, you get to see presentations, which are amazing. But I think, like you said, is just the interactions that I had just being there with yourself and everyone else. Like you don't get those online no matter how you try to set it up online. It just doesn't lend itself to those hallway weirdo conversations about stuff.
Yeah. No, 100%, man. And I'll say I feel so fortunate to have come up at the time that I did, exactly because of that, is because we couldn't rely on social media to glean information and instead had to be extrapolated through in-person connections. And that's been the vast majority of like the connections that I have in our industry have been foraged through these conferences, through certifications and in-person events and mutual acquaintances that I've met through these events. Invariably, the vast majority of the people that I have on the podcast are people that I've connected with in person at, during these opportunities. And and so again, I feel, really grateful for that. It's really been the basis for how I've kind of grown as an individual, as a professional, and and also given me the opportunity to kind of realize how much BS is out there
Yeah.
and like what it really takes to not only effectively coach someone, but also how to like effectively run a business and what is is realistic and what's not.
Yeah. And even I was talking to a buddy the other day to find out that he's making, yeah, a couple million a year pretty easily, not a big
Mm,
team. And he was complaining about some of the same issues that I have, and you
yeah,
think like even I talked to another guy a year ago who's multiple million dollar business per year. and similar problems, which to
Yes.
me, you always think, oh, once you're making 1 million a year or 10 million or whatever number it is, or six figures, whatever, all your problems evaporate and it's just the easy road. And what I've realized over time is no, a lot of those people have very similar problems and have different problems you
Yes.
didn't consider either. And so just talking to them and getting their ideas and realizing that, oh yeah, everyone is more similar than they are different. But from the outside looking in, you would think, oh my gosh, like they can't, struggle with the same things I do. And a lot of times, yeah, it's similar.
It's a quick ticket to imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
when we try and compare ourselves to other professionals and make assumptions that things are different or easier or better for them. And I think it's the exact same conversation when, general population is looking to social media as an example
Yeah.
for, what they aspire to be like, and saying, oh, well, it just must be so easy for him. He's has a faster metabolism, or he can eat whatever he wants and still lose weight, or, all of these things. And it's the same conversation. Everyone has their respective struggles, and invariably all our struggles become so much more similar than they are different.
Yeah. And I think of that, and I haven't got these comments too often. One of the comments I got for a while was, well, it must be easy for you because you run your own business. You can work whenever you want. You have a gym in your garage. Like you don't have to go anywhere. And a lot of that is 100% true. But the part that people don't see is that, yeah, I started, moved my business to my garage, God, 13 and a half years ago now.
Yeah,
And I didn't have any money to buy frickin' equipment.
right.
I had 5 clients at the time who stayed with after the gym closed. So I told them, like, hey, I'll give you 85% off. The caveat is you have to pay cash up front on January 1st, and then I'm going to train you out of my garage. And I thought, what the hell? If they all say no, then okay, I'll figure something out. And two of them said yes. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a great deal. Here's the money. So I went and called Wendler at Elite FTS, got a rack, got a bar, got a trap bar, bought a bunch of used weights, and now I had a gym in my garage. And my backup plan was, well, if this fails miserably, hey, I got a cool gym in my garage.
That's right.
I
I,
didn't think any further beyond that.
no, absolutely. And that is the irony of it, is like, yeah, we work for ourselves, run our own business from home. And I'm in a similar situation. I mean, I work from home.
Yeah.
I got a home gym, even though I do enjoy going to a commercial gym frequently. But at the same time, if I reflect on this week alone, I've trained once, and I've been, working 12, 14-hour days. And, that's the penance I think that we pay for running our own business, and wanting to create our version of what success looks like, and spread, and share the mission that we each independently have. I don't think it's what, from the outside in, quote unquote, it must be nice. From the inside out, it's sort of like, sometimes I'd be lying if I said I don't sometimes think how nice it would be to have a clock in and clock out job where I
Yeah.
wasn't thinking about business 24/7, especially for my marriage, especially for my family life. And, that's where this idea of like proverbial balance is non-existent. It's just there's always seasons, and so it's, yeah, again, struggles in our own right. These are, but
Yeah.
to be fair, like, listen, these are certainly first world problems.
Oh,
Uh,
100%. Yeah, yeah.
and I wouldn't change it for the world. I feel very, very fortunate to be able to do what I do, to be able to do what we do, to be able to make the impact that we make. I can't think of a better job.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives me flashbacks too. At some point in my life, even now, sometimes I wish I was just wired a little bit different.
Mm,
I've had a bunch of horrible jobs, especially going through college for way, way too long. And one of the jobs I did was actually on an assembly line, putting heads on Pocahontas dolls. So like these little kid care shaped
yeah.
things of molded shampoo and bath care that have the little figurine heads. So I worked in that place and I literally stuck heads on Pocahontas dolls as they went down the assembly line for, 8.5 hours a day.
That sounds horrible.
And it was utterly horrible. I
That
could
sounds
not
horrible.
stand it. You had to be there at 5 in the morning. It was just utterly relentless. The one only pro was that when I left, I sure as hell didn't think about the job. And
Yeah,
after a
right.
while, I was there luckily just for a summer. I asked some of these people who have been, working at this job for 15, 20 years. And in my brain, I'm thinking, oh my God, these poor people, they must hate it. It's horrible. And ironically, a lot of them were like, no, this is great. I'm like, great. Like, what? Why? They're like, well, the pay is okay. And I never think about it once I leave work. I do my
Yeah.
job, I'm here, and then I leave, and I never think about it till I just show up the next day. And I'm like, oh, there is something kind of cool with that. My
Mm.
brain can't do that for whatever reason. But I am, kind of jealous of like, oh, you do the job, you make the widgets, you're done with it. You go home, like you don't think about widget making till the next day, and you can see progress of something that you've actually done.
I think it definitely takes a different level of programming. And like you said, wiring, because I know
Yeah.
I'm not wired like that. And straight out of grad school, I mean, I had I had two jobs for about 6 months each. And then and during that time, I still was running a side hustle, personal training, to the
Mm-hmm.
point where I had built up the side hustle, just yeah, personal training enough and built my clientele enough to then be able to piece out on the jobs. And that was 15, 16, almost 17 years ago.
Nice.
And it never looked back. I mean, I've always said I'm unemployable because I always thought that I could do things better than, the systems and structure and operations that they had in place. Um, and man, it's been an interesting ride for sure.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat now. I was joking with my wife the other day because I worked for 11 years in the biomedical industry. And when I left, people were like, what are you doing, you crazy person? Like, you have a master's in mechanical engineering, you finished your PhD in
Right.
exercise phys, you've got 10 plus years of experience. Like, you could literally go down the street and apply to a different company and start at, 100, 120,000 a year. And I'm like, then I got to work like 40 to 70 hours a week, and I got to start like 2 weeks vacation, and I got to show up on time. And then, oh my God, what if my boss like wants to micromanage me? Because I was very
Yeah.
much like, okay, tell me the shit you want done and just leave me alone. If I have questions, I'll come find you. I'll get it done. And you tell me the next thing. But, a lot of companies don't necessarily work like that. So yeah, the longer I was there, the more unemployable I became. And I also realized that this isn't really a good fit.
Yeah. Well, you got to know what you don't want before you can know what you do want, I think.
Yeah, and it was a great experience. It was like the thing I thought I wanted to do, coming out of college. And, most of the time, like what we're working on was pretty cool. And it was, to a benefit. And, 90% of the people I worked with were great. And there wasn't anything that was bad per se about it, or, employees or dynamics or anything like that. It just, the longer I was there, I realized that, oh, yeah, I don't think the same way as someone else. And even when I was there, I was still, doing training on the side and doing all these other things like you were at the same time. And
Right.
to me, that was much more interesting because like the problems you have to solve in, let's say, the fitness field are literally just never ending. That's one of the reasons I still, even though I do a lot of education stuff now, I still train clients, is because the stuff they come up with is stuff that I would have never picked to try to go solve on my own. Right. So it's this like relentless problem solving with skin in the game at the same time.
It's never like you learn these fundamental principles and you can rely on the science to a degree, but invariably it's the nuance that is becomes the biggest learning opportunity in my experience, right? To truly being able to help a client through their journey. That's why I think it's paramount that a coach, especially a coach, and this is again just my opinion, but a coach, especially a coach that's scaling their business, still stays rooted enough in the business and rooted enough in coaching to continue learning and continue to be able to apply the nuance and apply the educational systems understand the psychology of behavior change and understand the art of coaching to the degree that so much of what you end up doing with clients isn't about the numbers and the X's and O's, but so much more again about the conversations and the challenges and the psychology of things to frankly just be able to help people get out of their own way, to be able to be proactive in a society that is becoming ever more challenging to be successful with, especially in the health and fitness realm.
Yeah, I feel like it's people, coaches, trainers starting in health and fitness. It literally parallels the changes their clients are going through, right? Because I think about
Definitely.
on a business sense, you see all the coaches who are successful in the videos in front of their fancy cars and all this other stuff. And then later you learn sometimes they're not even their own cars, they were
Totally.
rented. And, and some of it's true, some of it's not. But you see this, oh, here's what it looks like to be successful, which is not really how it is. You don't ever see the downsides. And for people looking for, just say, body comp changes, I see someone who's in shape, and this is their lifestyle. They're like, oh, it must be, so easy for them. And so I feel like there's a lot of parallels at the same thing because you're comparing yourself to everyone's like highlight reel.
Yeah.
And some of their highlight reels may not even be real.
That's it. I mean, especially like, it's so deceptive when we look at social media and business, but when you look at someone's reel, um, and you assume that that's like the pinnacle of what you want, but not realizing, for example, how terrible the person feels. Like if you're doing
Oh
body
yeah.
composition, right, or physique change, and we kind of work towards this given goal and we snap the pictures, but behind the scenes is like you're freaking miserable,
Yeah.
you know? And you're literally like starving the body and putting yourself in this terrible metabolic situation that is clearly unsustainable, yet you present that, and I'm guilty of this too. And I have this conversation very openly and very frequently, and certainly with our clients as well, of saying, well, I want to look like you know, okay, cool. Fully respect that. And I will 100% help guide you there. I just want you to understand the implications of what it looks like when we go through this process.
Mm-hmm.
And as we walk through that and we keep the lines of communication open, I want you to know that, there's going to be a tipping point where perhaps you might feel like the juice is just not worth the squeeze. And that's
Mm-hmm.
totally cool as well. Like there's a level of sacrifice that's involved in, and it's just like I talked about, whether we're talking about body composition, whether we're talking about building a quote unquote successful business, right? I'm willing to make this level of sacrifice where on one end, I will diet down to a certain point and for long enough and consistently enough to snap the pictures. I will sit behind my desk for as long as it takes, focusing on the efforts to get my business in a position where I can impact more people and help create the stability and success that I'm looking for my family and future, And if at any point, and trust me, there's plenty of opportunities and times when I feel like, man, it's just not worth it. But those are often short-term emotions, right? To then be able to say, okay, well, I'll continue to keep my foot on the gas, or, maybe it would be more realistic for me to pump the brakes a little bit, depending on how things are progressing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it's always the same thing with coaches and clients that there's always trade-offs. Like the amount of people I've talked out of a hardcore fat loss phase when their stress is going to be through the roof is,
Yeah,
I mean, I've lost clients because of that. They're like, well, but this next 6 months I got to travel for this and I'm on the road all the time. And I'm like, we can do things to help your general habits and you will get some body comp from that. But if you're, let's say, a male trying to get to single digits, like legit, and you're on the road 90% of the time living out of a suitcase in a
right,
hotel, and you have not done this before, so you don't have a skill set to fall back on to know
right,
what it is you would need to do and have experience of been close to that before, you might do it, but man, it's going to be ridiculously hard and it's going to be adding to your stressor versus maybe we do that the second half of the year when you're only traveling 20% of the time. Trust me, I can guarantee you it's going to be way easier, especially the first time doing it. You don't really want to set them up for failure because then that starts the whole,
Totally.
psychosomatic thing of like, oh, I could never do it before and I wasn't able to do it this time and I paid you all this money and yeah.
But that's the nuance right there. That's where
Yeah.
you are experienced enough with the nuances of body composition change and the efforts involved relative to the respective client to be able to confidently and competently say those things. Whereas I know for me early in my career, I tell the client what they want to hear.
Oh, I did that all the time early on.
Sure. And I just think that's the rite of passage with any type of practice. You don't know what you don't know, and we all have blind spots, and that's where, the science can only tell us so much. We have to have the experience, and frankly, even mentors can only tell us so much. But man, there's so many lessons that I've come back to come to the realization that saying, oh, okay, now I understand why whomever I respect in the industry or have a connection with or was a mentor or coach at one point was telling me to do it this way and I didn't listen. And okay, now I understand why. But me being the rebel that I am, have to figure this shit out for myself. And it's just the way she goes.
Yeah, I remember when I started my PhD, I was doing that, working part-time, was still running my business part-time. And I thought, oh, I'll just keep the same level of fitness I've always had. And was kind of okay for the first year and a half, and then it slowly started going down. And then by the last like 3.5 years, that got stretched out to 7 years instead of 5 years. It was like, okay, as long as I'm not doing anything that is irreversible, I'm okay. Like I pulled the line all the way back to, yeah, my lipids are kind of bad, my blood work's not
Mm,
good, my testosterone is like below 200, but I'm taking power naps in the back of my car and sleeping 4.5 hours a night.
been
So I
there.
know it's all self-induced lifestyle, stress. I would train maybe twice a week. I had 4 gym memberships. I had kettlebells under my desk. It was just, and my body comp was like by far the worst it ever was. Performance was dog shit. But I'm like, I know that this is a temporary thing, that this phase will end. Either I make it or I don't. But there is going to be a finite end to it. And at some point, you kind of have to, like the old, Cortez thing of like burn the ships of like, okay, this is the direction I'm going. And I told my doc, I'm like, I'll do whatever possible as long as there's not something that's irreversible that I can't come back from. Like that's kind of my
Hmm.
line in the sand. My lipids are high for a while, testosterone's low, whatever, I'll figure it out. And I don't recommend that to people, but I think if I would have continued to try to keep everything even at just a maintenance level, then I would have been able to do it. So I think sometimes under the extreme circumstances, you have to kind of pick, okay, what are you going to do? With clients that I'm always like, okay, what is the timeline? There has to be, if you're going to go that hard and that extreme and diet for a show or whatever it
That's right.
is, or do an advanced degree or start your business, what do you have to have a hard deadline of either I made it or I didn't? And then you have to do a reassessment and don't let that thing go on for many years at a time because I've seen people just get to the point where they can't come back from stuff at that point.
Yeah, and I would say that's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the years. Initially is well early on in my career would be kind of like the objective is just get someone lean and with no sort of acknowledgement or care or realization around what's on the back end of
Yeah, yeah.
that,
What's
right?
the cost?
Right. What is the cost of sort um, of the things the stress that we're inducing on all different levels, and and obviously we know the outcome of that. Of course, it's relatively easy to get someone lean, but to be able to stay lean is really where the hard part, where things really get challenging. And that begs the question of how are we getting them lean in the first place? And so this real comes back to these conversations. And for the way that we view things is really this kind of nutrition seasons approach of right out of the gate. Like first and foremost, is we won't take clients for a short period of time typically. It's
Yeah.
usually a minimum of 6 months. Most of our clients commit to a year, and most of those clients end up continuing on in some capacity for an extended period of time because of this. Because we realize, well, even in the first year, if you don't have any nutritional knowledge or develop those skills, right? Perhaps the whole first year is just going to be this slow and steady diet phase of, yes, we're creating some degree of a caloric deficit, but what we're really doing is we're helping you, educate you, and help you build the skills and the tools to be successful on your own, right? We call it becoming your own best nutrition detective. And that's where it's giving you the autonomy and the empowerment to just learn how to make better decisions and how the decisions that you make on a daily basis impact the outcomes that we're looking for, right? To the degree that beyond that, one, we've really shifted their belief system around, oh, I just want to lose that 10, 15, 20 pounds and then I'll be good. No,
Yeah.
like then you're going to want something else. I guarantee it. So how are your goals changing and how are you kind of moving the goalposts as we progress, as you learn more, as you become more educated about the process? And then how can we really set you up for success long term, right? To the degree then it's like, okay, now we can do a performance phase, a bulking phase, another dieting phase, and slowly and progressively really shift body composition. That's where, it really gets fun because the client really has this picture, this vision for what their future can look like. And what's so amazing about that, Mike, and I know you'll agree with me, is when they realize what's possible for them to accomplish in their health and fitness, and they overcome these stagnations that perhaps they've been dealing with for a long time, they realize the possibility in the rest of their life.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
there's a huge amount of transfer.
100%. And that's like what I feel like we're so called to help empower clients with, is for them to realize like, hey, you have the ability to change your situation, your career, your social support system, your relationships, right? The outcome of your life because you've mastered these skills. This level of confidence that, look, man, you're in control. Life is happening for you, not to you. And that's like at the end of the day, what better, you know, what better opportunity do people have?
Yeah, and that's what with clients makes me the most excited. It's like, yeah, I get excited if they have, big competition, they reach their goals, they, did well, strongman competition, physique competition, whatever they're doing. Cool, that's great. That's awesome. That's primarily why they're paying. But I also even get more excited when like a client of mine last year started wake surfing, started doing other things she
Right.
had never done before in her entire life, later in life, never had done these things, in her teens, 20s, or 30s. And just to see the expansion of her as an individual and how, things were going better, relationships were going better. She was still getting closer to her goals, got, pretty much every goal that she set, physical fitness, physique wise, she made, which was great. Where in the past I would have been too, and this has actually happened like years ago, especially clients wanting to get lean. It's like, okay, we'll get you lean. And we did. And I didn't take into account the cost, and in some cases, like the rest of their life was a walking shit show,
Right.
and it was kind of their own doing, and I probably facilitated that, so I'm
Yeah.
like, ooh,
Those are
oops,
those are
we got you
tough.
to the goal. And, there's only so much you can do per se, but it wasn't even on my radar. I wasn't even like thinking about that like at all.
Right. Yeah, those are always tough. And that's where it's like, listen, I think the best thing that we can do, I mean, listen, now that we have a level of experience, I think as you mature as an individual, as a coach, in your own, again, confidence and competence, it becomes a lot easier to have those conversations and to not feel like you don't want to make the client mad at you or quote unquote
Mm-hmm.
lose the client. Like I would rather lose a client by telling them what they need to hear than entertain them with something that's not going to serve them long term.
Yes.
And so, an example, I had a conversation. I've got a guy I've been working with on and off for years. He's an ex Navy SEAL. With that comes this all or nothing attitude,
Mm-hmm.
this sort of hard nosed, just tell me what to do, I'll do it. And it's become it's become a massive matter of friction over the years too, because invariably the conversation has always come down to, I understand that you want to get leaner, but you need to understand that the biggest limiting factor keeping you from getting lean is that you keep trying to do more and more and keep
Hmm.
trying to, you know, push further beyond what you're physically um, capable of and physiologically capable of, to the degree that you're getting sick all of the time, you're constantly on antibiotics, you're not sleeping enough, you're overly stressed out with your business and your career, you've got young kids, you know, your marriage is on the rocks. Like, dude, we have to acknowledge these things. And so until we take control of those and help alleviate some of the friction that's coming there, till you actually start training less, uh, and managing those stress levels, you're not going to see the results that you desire. And so slowly and surely, things have come around. Life for him, he's in a much better spot. And so, but sure as, sure as shit yesterday. So now we've gotten him pretty good and lean. He looks great. He's, 50-year-old dude. Again, still a lot on his plate, but probably about, I don't know, 10 or 12% body fat. Looks
Yeah.
looks really good. And a lot of it is from kind of actually backing off on a lot of the things that he was doing, getting him to eat more carbs periodically and not be a psychopath with this stuff. And now he's like, all right, now I want to, put on another 8 to 10 pounds of lean muscle mass, but I also want to be vascular,
Yeah. I want to stay
and
lean, bro. Just
that's it.
magically add 10 pounds of muscle. No
That's it. And
fat.
I'm
No
like,
fat.
listen, dude, I'm like, matter of fact, like, here's what that trajectory is going to look like. We got to bulk. And, unless you want to start talking about anabolics or something, which I have no experience with, this is, the conversation.
Yeah.
And he appreciates that,
Hmm.
right? Because for him, he knows it's what he needs to hear, even though he doesn't like hearing it. It's the truth. And he could say, screw you and go to another trainer, but he values his time and energy and, knows that he'll go find someone else that will entertain him with it, but he'll be coming right back in the same situation in another 12 to 18 months, frustrated that he's not where he wants to be.
Yeah, and I think that's just the advantage of just having reps and having experience too. Because I know early on with a similar case, I would have said, all right, yeah, we can do that. And then now
Right.
I'm just like, again, current client, very lean, trying to add more muscle, which we've done in the past. But the first question I had is, okay, how much fat are you willing to gain?
Right.
And there's no right or wrong, right? I mean, shit, where I'm at now, like if I could gain 1 pound of muscle for and 1 pound of fat, like a 1-to-1 ratio,
Right.
I'm pretty happy, like I'm kind of on the weird, not really responder end of it per se. Because I know when I decide to get leaner, I can take the fat off because I know what to do if and when I decide that that's, a priority. But it's harder when one, you haven't done that before and you don't know what that client's ratio is. And I tell them that up front, like, we'll just set some benchmarks. And when we get there, you can at that point decide, hey, let's go a little bit further. Let's not, let's add 20 pounds and see where you're at and just have it be a staged thing because in their head, they think, oh my God, you mean I'm going to gain like, 10 pounds of fat? That's horrible. But it's not going to happen overnight, right? So
Right.
it's like, okay, let's reassess in 10 weeks or 3 months. And
Right.
whatever they
Exactly.
decide is fine. Then you just have the other conversation of, okay, here's what we had. Here's about what we think what we did. Yeah, we can maybe tweak a few things. We can maybe, push the body comp a little bit better this or that direction. But yeah, it's unrealistic without the aid of, even with the aid of sometimes of exogenous drugs that especially someone who's been training for quite some time. The only way I've seen around that is if you do have some freaks who have only done like strength work but never done like hypertrophy work. Like if you got like a
Yeah.
just a pure athlete who's never really done much, leg hypertrophy stuff, calf hypertrophy stuff, delt stuff, and they've been like 100% performance. okay, yeah, you can maybe prioritize some of those muscle groups, maybe add a little bit more muscle there. Maybe they won't gain a lot of fat. But for the vast majority of people, it's going to be what ratio is acceptable to you. We'll do our best to skew the ratio towards more muscle and less fat. But yeah, it's just that's how physiology works.
It's certainly bittersweet sometimes.
Yeah. And again, that always goes back to what we're talking about with what are your priorities and what cost are you willing to pay? And there's no right or wrong per se with that. Because I think especially with clients, like with newer, let's say guys, comes in, typical guys like, okay, I want to gain 10 pounds of muscle and lose 10 pounds of fat, right? So I want to recomp 20 pounds. And let's say they're already, on the thinner side, they don't have a lot of muscle to work with. And you ask them, like, what have you been doing historically? Well, I've been trying to, gain some muscle and lose fat at the same time. It's like, okay, we may spend 9 months out of that whole year just slowly trying to accumulate muscle and, maybe just a quarter, short of 3 months of trying to lose fat. So I think picking the direction you want to go, but then like we just said, it's hard for them to realize that, yeah, this means you're probably going to lose your abs during that period of time. Are you okay with that? If you're not, well, then we may have to change your goal. There's only so much you can magically accomplish. You can only push physiology so hard.
Well, especially for guys like us. I mean, that's predominantly who I work with. And, so then it just always begs the conversation of, yeah, we understand what needs to happen from a calorie and a training volume standpoint and a recovery standpoint. But that's the easy part. The hard
Yeah.
part is talk to me about, your readiness for change and your commitment level and your current eating behaviors and your lifestyle and your responsibilities and your stress levels and your relationship with your wife and who cooks the food and sleep behaviors and your level of skill around planning and preparation and travel schedule. And so it's never, at least for me and in my experience, because I don't work with physique competitors, I work solely with general, well, few athletes here and there, but
Hmm.
generally solely general population, in which case those are always the limiting factors
Oh,
that we
yeah.
have to be aware of. And so it never goes as well as it never goes as smooth as it could, should they have all of those variables controlled for, right? It's never
Yeah.
a true scientific experiment because we don't have control, right,
No,
of
and
the
you live in an open,
variables.
dynamic environment that's
Very
constantly
much
changing.
so. And that's where I think as a coach, we have to be very attuned to how the variables are changing and relying both on the data as well as subjective feedback to help us make informed decisions and be able to insert logic and reason into any manipulations that we make, to understand, okay, well, we had kind of set this next 3 months as a dieting phase, but you had a death in the family, you've got the kids' spring break, or you just all this, shit storm at work popped up. It wouldn't be unreasonable for us to just give you a bit of a reprieve, pop into maintenance, and extend out, you know, this dieting window by virtue of doing more calorie cycling or more diet breaks throughout, or you know whatever that looks like. But that's, legitimately, that's what real world, in my opinion, real world coaching and real world progress looks like. And I think people are always appreciative of that at the end of the day.
Yeah. I remember talking to Jordan Syed on here and asking him about, do you think AI is going to replace personal training? And he's like, fuck no. He's like, because, and I agree with him, like, you might be able to get some good information from AI. I think in the future it'll probably get better. We could debate if the information is good or not. But even in the best case scenario, you got the air quotes perfect plan. We all know that you need help with the implementation of it because, like you said, You're dealing with a dynamic person in a dynamic system, and things are going to change. And you can't, even highly motivated humans, you can't expect them to white knuckle their way through 6 months and be 100% compliant without some massive cost, even if they did that, right?
Right.
The coaching is always going to be the art of, okay, yeah, let's push a little harder on this now, like you said, or let's back off, or let's change your training this way, or let's add this, let's, tweak things as they come up so that over the long term, you can continue to make progress instead of, I think there's still a lot of maybe some people who think that if it was just better information that I would succeed. And rarely is that true. Like, yes, there's poor information. Yes, you can make bad decisions, but most people I think know kind of what to do, but they are lacking the skill set to get it done because they haven't been able to get it done before, right? Which to me is that's the art of coaching, which I think via an actual live human being with experience isn't going to go away anytime soon.
I think what most people think they need to do is far above and beyond what there is realistic for them.
Oh,
So,
100%.
right, we'll always have conversations with clients and they'll say, "Oh, no, 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 I know what to do. I just need some accountability." And I would say yes, I do think everyone needs some degree of accountability, and we know that accountability is something that success is built around. At the same time, because of the vast amount of information and confusing and contradictory information, I think that what most people think that they need to do far is again is a far above and beyond what is realistic for them, right? To the degree that that's where it's up to us to help refine and educate them around, okay, let's take what it is that you're willing to do, what you think you need to do, and make sure that we're framing it in a realistic way for you so that you're still motivated by it, so that you can still be consistent with it, or and mostly so that you can be consistent with it and so that it's not something that you end up going hard for a few weeks or a few months only to say, I can't do it anymore, I quit, and go back to your old behaviors.
Yeah, and it's I think irresponsible of the coach to just yell at your client and tell them to try harder. It's like, really, when did that ever solve anything? Like I've often joked, like, so you come to my gym, we'll just put 405 on the bar to deadlift, and my cue is, bro, if you can't make it, I'm just gonna yell at you to try harder. It's like it's, at some point, yeah, do you need to put in effort? Yes. Do you need to put in consistent effort? 100%. But if you're already doing that, trying harder isn't gonna, it's not gonna magically solve everything for you.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Just like more information, a lot of times more information above a certain point. Oof. Some of those are some of the hardest clients to deal with. Like I've told
Totally.
multiple clients in the past, like, stop listening to fitness podcasts. Like I love Andrew Huberman. He's great. You don't need a 3 hour podcast
Thank
about
you.
why you need sunlight exposure. Like if you're in the industry and you're interested in the research, cool, there might be a use for it. But at some point when you've maxed out your information that's not changing what you're doing, more information actually gives you that inverted U. Like you start getting so confused that now you're not executing on the things that you need to. Like I've often joked, even for I do some grip sport competitions, and so people are like, "We never see you on any of the grip forums, or you never seem to ask anyone else any questions about it." And I'm like, "No, like because my coach is Adam Glass, and if I have a question, I just ask him, and then I
Right.
go do Shocker what he tells me to do. If it doesn't work, then I go back and say, "Hey, bro, I tried this, I got this result. What should I do now?" It, I don't have a need to go anywhere else. I'm just going to get more confused that there's no point to it. If I didn't trust him, then I wouldn't hire him as a coach,
Right.
and so I know that kind of seems sometimes obvious that you have to sit down and explain this, to clients, but most of the time then they're like, oh,
Right.
okay, yeah.
Well, it's almost damaging, like, again, the amount of just this sort of binary and myopic information that we're getting these little pieces of sound bites around biohacking and all of this
Yeah.
stuff. And for the Jesus, for the vast majority of people, it's like, dude, that is not what is going to move the needle for you. It's like, man, just get some sleep, eat some protein, manage your calorie intake, move your body, lift some weights, like drink some water, you're good. Like legitimately, if we did nothing but that, like I promise we could probably get to 95% of what you're looking to accomplish. Then we can start talking about red light therapy, you know, and that's I think it's good. Like, I think I love the fact that people want to know more. I love the
Oh, totally.
platforms that we have to be able to learn. And I love the opportunity to get on a call with someone and help understand where they're coming from, what they're currently doing, and how some of the things that they think they are doing well or quote unquote right or supposed to be doing are the very things that are actually keeping them stuck and
Hmm.
helping again reframe their mindset to say, is it reasonable to assume that because you're not seeing progress, despite the fact that you think you're doing everything right, the very things that you're doing right now are actually the things that are keeping you stuck? And would it be reasonable to assume that if we actually started to change some of those variables around XYZ meal timing, calorie intake, sleep rhythms, stress management, that we could probably start to move the needle in a different way? Yes? Okay, here's how we do that. Right. And that makes sense for people. That clicks. It's like, right definition of insanity. It's like you do realize you keep trying to perpetuate this same cycle. So, how about instead of you keep doing the same thing, we acknowledge, right, that there might be a better way. And listen, we all have blind spots. We don't know
Hmm.
what we don't know. That's my job as a coach, is to help shine some light on those blind spots so that you know next time. And we can take those behaviors, we can use them as lessons, learn from them, and turn the page.
Yeah. And that's what's hard. Even like you mentioned red light therapy. I just did a presentation for Andy and Dan at Biomolecular Athlete. I think it'll go out through their network at some point. But
Nice.
I started reading that stuff 5 years ago, and just to do this stupid presentation. I say stupid because it was reinventing way too much stuff to do. I think I read like
Yeah.
133 studies or something
Oh,
asinine
man.
about it. I used like 14 in like a 3.5 hour talk or whatever, you know. And at the end of the day, like all that boils down to, yeah, there's some pretty cool data that does support red light therapy. I think it definitely can be useful. However, if you're looking at the total effect size, it's still within the single digits, right? So to your point, like if you're not sleeping enough, you're not getting to the gym, you're not, you're missing all these big things that have, multiple factors of leverage associated with them, then by far and away, those are going to be the big things that are going to move it for you. But it's also hard for consumers to be like, well, I heard this is actually efficacious. Well, it is, but then what is the big picture? Like to, maybe a high level athlete who's trying to get 2% more. Yeah, for that person, that might be the difference maker.
Sure.
For the average person who, like you said, sleeps 4 hours a night and eats protein of 60 grams a day, it's like, yeah, we got plenty of other stuff we can, we need to
Right.
work on first.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And those have been a lot of the lessons that I've had to learn throughout my career. I mean, we go back to kind of talking about in-person seminars. Right out of grad school, I, have always been just voraciously hungry to learn more about nutrition and health and fitness and nutrition specifically. And I started attending seminars from Paul Chek
Hmm.
and then was turned on to Charles Poliquin. And, when we talk about kind of being polarizing on certain things,
Yeah.
Charles Poliquin was proverbial,
He made a career out of that.
dogmatic, right? Approach to so many different things, which led me down kind of a slippery path in many different ways. At the same time, was invaluable education opportunity um, to realize a lot of the things that he discussed, while they weren't relevant for me, the time, the clientele, right? The population that I was working with, and so on and so forth. So again, it is just very, very nuanced, but by doing all of that, you learn so much around what works with whom and when. And you start to just pull out all of these little nuggets to build your own real methodology. And I think that's the name of the game here is, I've learned so much from you and, your flex diet certification and I've learned things from Allie and I've learned things from the doctors and just sitting in the attendants and getting little nuggets of things that I've learned from, hormone doctors and from having conversations with other trainers in the room about both working with clients and kind of building a successful business. And I don't see any other way that it can happen. And
Hmm.
everyone's timeline is very, very different. And it goes the same for someone's timeline around their physique changes. You're going to get some genetic freaks that are going to, in 6 months, they're going to completely change their lifestyle and they're going to be good to go. And I've had clients like that. And I'm like, dude, I can't believe, you dropped 40 to 50 pounds in 6 months and you got kind of shredded and you're good to go. And
Yeah.
I've heard from them 2 years later and they're like, I'm still doing it, I'm still learning and just so grateful. And then we've got clients for 2 to 3 years and things haven't really changed that much, even though, physically, even though physiologically they've changed, psychologically they've changed a lot. And so, that's just the way she goes.
Yeah. And it's always hard. I think context is the thing that isn't talked about much at all, but is the thing that allows you to try and sift through items to determine if they're useful in particular cases or not, right? So take, Poliquin, in my opinion, had some amazing stuff. Like I remember getting his Poliquin principles and realized,
Oh,
oh
yeah,
my God, there's, this is back in the 90s, I think, or early 2000s. I'm like, there's something beyond the Delorme 3x10 method that was invented in 1951.
right.
Holy shit, 5x5 from Bill Starr. Oh, my mind is, exploding. But then biosignature. Some other stuff is like,
Right.
did you just completely pull this out of your ass? Like, you know, but it
Yeah.
was so hard with a lot of those figures that it wasn't that everything they did was bad. It wasn't that everything they did was amazing. It was some stuff was really good. Like you said, some stuff was amazing for this particular athlete or this particular person, but was horrible for a different athlete. But it's hard to get that context filter to try to figure out, okay, when do I apply this? When do I not? And I think that's a more advanced question than does this work, quote unquote, or not work?
Well, you have to be analytical. And I would say that, one of the attributes that I adopted from my parents. So my dad was a practicing lawyer, but
Hmm.
he got an undergrad at Stanford. Then he went to and got a PhD in biomolecular science. You guys would probably hit it off
Oh,
great. You're
geez.
both big nerds. But PhD from Caltech, and then he went to University of Iowa Law School and
Oh,
practiced in,
Jesus.
in patent and trade infringement. So he had a
Yeah,
really
yeah.
complex understanding of not only law but also biotechnology, and which made it very hard being his son, but also also forced me to, infuse this line of questioning, right, around and being overly analytical about the things that people are telling me about the things that we're hearing and trying to understand the context to which, with which they're being delivered, which, in Poliquin's case, it gave me a great opportunity to infuse that level of analytics and say, okay, specifically with respect to biosignatures, like, okay, here's what I'm hearing. Here's sort of this broad array of supplementation that we're, trying to apply. And then me doing my diligence to go behind the scenes and look up, okay, where are these supplements coming from? What are
Hmm.
therapeutic doses? What does it say in the literature around um, how they're utilized in these respective ways? And that, because it was because of that, that helped me continue to kind of want to learn more about clinical nutrition and apply that to not only myself, because I had a myriad of kind of health issues and stomach issues growing up and early on in my career, but also apply those principles to clientele and truly understand the science. So because of that, then I went and got another master's degree in clinical nutrition. And so I think that it's paramount that we always take this information that we're gleaning with a grain of salt, with context, and try and infuse a deeper understanding of how and where and when it's relevant, especially with this sort of soundbite experience that we're gleaning things from.
Yeah, definitely. And as we start wrapping up here, like, what do you think is the best way to take, we've kind of touched on it, information and then also make it practical at the same time? Because, for example, if you look at just protein, right? Yeah, there's a lot of good data to show you need 2 to 3 grams of leucine. You need probably 6 grams of branched chain amino acids for the whole process of muscle protein synthesis to continue. You need some form of energy, blah, blah, blah. But that just sounds like, alien speak to a client and is not necessarily useful for them to get to their goals. So how do you translate that into, hey, at your first meal, let's try to have 40 or 50 grams of protein. Like that's a doable thing, but yet it has all the other information baked into it that you needed to still know to get to that. Because it seems like in the industry, there's very much appealing to your colleagues when you're trying to work with general population about studies and everything else. But then I also hear from other trainers who are like, I don't know, like I told the client to have, 2.5 grams of leucine and they didn't do it. It's like, what do you, of course they didn't do it. What are you doing, you schmuck?
Your your client doesn't give a shit about leucine,
No,
and they probably don't give a shit about protein. They just want to know how to
no,
get
they want the
results.
result.
When I was first starting and first started studying with Charles, so that must have been like 2006. Um, he talked a lot about protein intake, and I think at one point he was recommending like 2 grams per pound of ideal body weight.
Yeah.
So me being new, relatively new, and you know, just easily influenced, especially from the caliber of person that Charles was, uh, took that information and tried to apply it directly to my very, very general population clientele. So having Betty Sue,
Mhm.
55-year-old golf club member, just wanting to lose a little bit of body fat and telling her, to eat 225 grams of protein a day because that's what Charles said. And very quickly realizing one, she doesn't even know what protein sources are. She
Right.
only eats twice a day. She barely moves her body. There is no chance in hell that she's going to,
Yeah.
eat that amount of protein relative to, for example, a baseball player that I'm working with now who's trying to pack on about 10 pounds before next season, who's like a robot. It's like, dude, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I say, okay, we need to be shooting for, around 250 grams of protein right now relative to your total calorie intake. And boom, I look at chronometer every single day. He's hitting those. We had a brief conversation around what those could look like, how to build out our meals. So we've got these very different ends of the spectrum. And that's where it all comes down to who is the type of clientele that we're working with. At the end of the day, the principles are the same. Yes, like we want to be getting a certain amount of protein, but of course, contextually, it's very, very different where we meet them on that level of spectrum to help them infuse those guidelines, right? To the degree that for Betty Sue, it's saying, it probably would be reasonable based on your existing intake for us simply to just start with 75 to 100 grams a day based on what you're currently consuming. I'm seeing you're consuming around 60 grams. Great start. Here's how we can add to that. Here's why that's beneficial. Do you think that's something that you can do? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and do that. And as her competence and confidence builds, then we can start to add more to those, to her prescription, so to speak. I think that's the name of the game in all elements of coaching is first and foremost determining where the client is starting from, what they're willing and capable and able to do, and then helping them progress in a realistic way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And last question, for a general population client who's at kind of an intermediate type level and they want to get significantly leaner, what would be the top three things that you would recommend to them?
I'd first want to understand what their current calorie intake looks like. And so I usually would have them track for a couple weeks. That's kind of our discovery period. You and I both know um, through the Hawthorne effect and the science of behavioral psychology, just getting someone to start to track their intake in and of themselves is going to create a level of accountability that one is going to help them drive more nutritional awareness. So they're going to start to naturally make better decisions because they know we're watching. That's what the Hawthorne
Yeah,
effect is when your
yeah.
behaviors change when someone's watching you. And so that's what's so awesome about the tracking process. Not that it's the end all be all, but it's someone just taking responsibility for their actions and being able to have autonomy over the process. And we know that calories reign supreme. Like, especially, one of the, I think Eric Helms has that kind of nutritional hierarchy pyramid, or
Yeah,
Andy Morgan talks about it, but it's calories, and then it's macros, then it's micros, then it's nutritional timing, then it's supplementation. I think that's the order
sounds right.
of importance. And it's just so relevant. It's so relevant. Why are we tripping up over supplementation or tripping up over intermittent fasting when you're just eating too much? Like, what's the low hanging fruit, as we call it, the lowest common denominator that we can impact to affect the greatest change? It's like this, it's like Luke's least mode. That's what we
Yeah, yeah.
want for people. And um and so first and foremost, we would look at just calorie intake and being able to realistically create a deficit, whether they automatically create that deficit for themselves just by virtue of tracking, which often happens,
Yep.
right, over that first couple of weeks. Because of the accountability, they make better decisions. They start eating less. The scale starts moving. They're motivated. And maybe it's moving at such a rate, let's just say half a pound to a pound a week for a general person, to say, don't change anything. Keep doing what you're doing. Now, beyond that, we might be able to then say, okay, relative to the calories that you're consuming, it probably would be reasonable for us to make sure you're getting enough protein in line with zero point 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of ideal, I'll say ideal body weight. Um, and depending on where they're coming from, how much body fat they have to lose, how aggressively they're losing it, whether they're strength training or not, how much they're moving their body. I'd say that would probably be the next thing. And then we'd also look at just generalized movement. Are you moving your body? Are you moving your body frequently? What's the total volume of movement that you're accumulating? If it's just steps per week, great. Can we establish a baseline? If you're currently doing 5,000, can we hit 7,500 and progress from there? Um, just because of the myriad of benefits there, getting them feeling better, thinking clearer, get a better blood sugar regulation. Can we start to add some zone two in addition to the generalized movement for aerobic capacity? That's a lot of stuff that I've learned from you, learned from Luke, um, for overall cardiovascular health. I would say those are usually the fundamental principles that from there, the conversations really root into, again, the nuances of how do we build out our day? How do we create reasonable portion sizes? How do we get enough protein at each of those meals? How do we structure our day so that we can make it non-negotiable to eat 3 to 4 meals, to accumulate that 7,500 plus steps per day? Those are all kind of the things that I would absolutely start with.
Yeah, that sounds great. So if we put them into four items, we've got calories, protein, some type of formal exercise, and then walking. So that sounds great.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty reasonable.
Awesome. And where can people find more about you? Give out your website, and you've got a great newsletter, you've got programs, you got all sorts of wonderful stuff.
Yeah, totally. So we're at bodysystems.com. We are at Body Systems Coaching. I'm sure you'll have all the links at Body Systems Coaching on Instagram. We've got a podcast that you've been on a couple times
Mm-hmm.
called the Smart Nutrition Made Simple Show. We do one-on-one coaching, and we also just launching a men's hybrid coaching program that's sort of a group and individual coaching program called our Prime Fit operating system. And it's really teaching men, husbands, and fathers to become the owners in their own body, ultimately becoming the CEO of their life through everything that we're talking about here: nutrition, strength, lifestyle. And there's more information about that in all of the links that I already shared.
Awesome. And if they want to get onto the newsletter, what's the best place for them to go?
I'll send you the link.
Perfect.
They
We'll
can
put it
just
down
subscribe
below.
to the newsletter through the link that you'll have right here in the show notes. So we send a few emails per week all about nutrition, health, fitness, the science, the psychology, personal anecdotes and experiences, client results, and what have you.
Awesome. Yeah, I would highly encourage people to check all that out. We'll make sure to have all the links and everything below. And yeah, thank you so much for all your time and sharing all your knowledge here today. I really appreciate it. That was a fun discussion.
Dude, it was great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Mike, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Yes, thank you so much.